Welcome aboard this morning. It's Innovation Pitch Challenge. Yay! Woo! It's been great. We got to talk last night. There is a lady I owe an apology to. Where is she? I think. There. See, you do know me. There was a lady that came up and was doing the networking thing, and we actually had to turn her away because I apologize about that. I was actually going to go find you after. Anyway, so yes, we got to talk as judges. I told the judges that they were a disappointment yesterday. I said they weren't ruthless enough. So I thought you guys that pitched yesterday, you got off easy. That I know that they actually had some tough questions. And so we're going to see it today because there's a real theme going on with the companies, isn't there? There's it's really interesting to me when as an investor, and I'm saying this for all of you because you have a job to do today, right? So as an investor, one of the things we're always looking for is differentiation. And one of the things that, again, a poli-sci English lit guy, the only reason I've survived in investments is one of the things I learned in liberal arts was pattern recognition. And so as an investor, it's been really interesting to watch pattern recognition over the last 2 days. How is this company different? Boy, it all sounds like they're all the same. So I actually have spent my morning sitting down with today's presenters who are expecting more ruthlessness and told them, how are you gonna make yourself look different than yesterday? So we're expecting sharp presenters, sharper MC, he was a little soft yesterday, and ruthless shark judges. So today's gonna be great. Dun, dun, dun. I'm so unorganized, Crystal, I have no effing clue who's first. I'm gonna be surprised as you are. That does not help me in any way, shape, or form. They're in order. Oh, left to right, not top to down. Left-handed ADHD, this one made no sense to me, just so you know. Great, I got to spend some time this morning with Philip. Novo Power, let's bring him to the stage. Come on, yay! Philip, I really enjoyed our conversation this morning. I'm going to kick it off. This guy's a professional musician as well as an energy guru. So last night, Peter and the Wolves, that was freaking fun last night. And Jean-Luc actually getting up and playing key, that was pretty cool. But we found out this guy's a professional cello player. But you're more cool than that because Novo Power is a pretty interesting company, isn't it?
I think so.
Here we go.
Where's the clicker? How's it work?
Clicker. See, I'm so unorganized. Is it there? Clicker. The 8 minutes is here.
Is it? This is forward?
The big button.
Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Hi. It's really great to be here. I've gotten to meet a lot of you. Okay. Fine. Oh yeah. So is this okay? Yeah. So it's really great to meet you. I've been involved in decentralized energy basically for 30 years. At the late 90s, I co-founded the Helio Center with Philippe Dunsky and have testified in dozens of regulatory hearings on these kinds of issues. But actually, I got into this question really because of externalities. I was a science journalist. I got involved in looking at the Great Whale Hydro Project. It's an enormous 3,000 megawatt project. To not waste too much of your time, to me, what's fundamental is that all ways of electricity produce substantial externalities, environmental and social, whether it's rivers, whether it's the climate, whether it's mountaintops. But we need this. We need electricity. We have to do this. But to throw it away just isn't right. And that's sort of where Novo Power comes from. So this slide won't take long because you've seen it 20 times in the last day. Power demand is growing dramatically, expected to double in 20 years, not just in Quebec, but pretty much everywhere. Frankly, I have no idea where that power is going to come from or what it's going to cost, and I don't really think anyone else does either. So there are big problems facing us. This is the current view from NERC of reliability. There's already big red zones and a lot of yellow zones in North America, and this map is only going to get worse in the coming years. Meanwhile, at the same time, we now have wonderful studies, this is from HEC, showing us that more than half of all the primary energy we use is thrown away in waste heat. We try to warm up the birds. I don't know what we're doing. But we got to be able to do something about this. Waste heat is an enormous resource if we can figure out how to use it. So we have an imaginary friend. His name is Olivier. He has a new gig. He's building a 100-megawatt co-location data center, but he's not sleeping very well. First of all, he has a power contract, but it's not big enough. People are calling him all the time. He wishes he had more power, and the utility says, sorry, that's what you got. Be lucky. Be glad you have it. At the same time, he has to turn a profit. His company has deep pockets, but he has to turn a profit, and power costs are going up, and no one knows how far. Nobody forecasts their power, their rates, even 2 years in the future. Well, now 2 years, but not 5 and not 10 and not 20. And then there's the public. There are all these demonstrations going on. People are very upset about data centers. They're using all the power. They're driving up rates. They're producing greenhouse gases. They're using water resources. And how do you go forwards in all this? Well, Nova Power can't solve all these problems, but it can help. What we do, our PowerGen CDU turns waste heat into electricity inside the data center, feeds it right back to the servers. That reduces your energy costs, increases your available capacity. It also reduces your greenhouse gas emissions and your water usage. And there's nothing like it on the market today. So what is a CDU? It's a coolant distribution unit. In any liquid-cooled data center, it's a box that sits there next to the racks, takes the hot liquid from the servers, and pumps it through a heat exchanger to throw away the heat. What we do is essentially we replace the CDU with a PowerGen CDU that sits in the same place and does the same thing, but it produces power instead of consuming it. How does it do that? It's an organic Rankine cycle, which means that there's 2 heat exchangers. In between, there's a working fluid, which is evaporated, which expands, does work, makes power, and the cycle goes around. So it really fits seamlessly in any standard liquid-cooled data center. Since the feed is a waste product, and actually a waste product that's expensive to get rid of, the real question, we'll talk about efficiency, but the real question is economic efficiency. I'm buying a machine that I expect to produce 50 kilowatts. How long is it going to take before I get my money back? Obviously, that depends on your electric rates. In Quebec, where rates are low, we're looking at a payback of around 4 years. But in Virginia, where rates are twice as high, it's down to 2 years. And if you go to California or to Germany, it's down under 1 year. Now, there are a lot of data centers. There are more and more, and they're really everywhere. This gives you an idea in the US, plus Quebec. And obviously, those bubbles are getting bigger every year. Our primary market focus as a startup is on data centers, but our technology also has huge potential in industry. There are enormous numbers of industries which are exothermic, that throw away phenomenal amounts of heat. Some of them are listed here. And then there's the whole world of internal combustion engines. We were talking this morning about Jenbacher, internal combustion engines that produce 40, if they're the really good ones, 45% of the energy value of their fuel. All the rest is heat in the jacket coolant and in the exhaust. The same technology can be applied there. And then there's dual use. Cloud security or data sovereignty or whatever you want to call it is really important. And if we can contribute to making that cost effective and environmentally effective, that's a good thing. Then off-grid power is, again, internal combustion engines. Same story I just told you. And marine applications as well, because ships use internal combustion engines to drive generators, to drive their ships. And we were in discussions with Canada's largest shipbuilder about this. We've tried to estimate the size of the market opportunity. It's enormous. It's getting bigger. These numbers aren't exact. There's a million ways to do this, but it's obviously a big market. We have a lot of traction. We're early stage, but we've been talking. We have relationships with all these companies. They're all essentially anxiously waiting for our first products to hit the market so they can line up and buy them. Competition. So we're organic Rankine cycle obviously has been around a long time. Turboden and Electrotherm are 2 of the big incumbents, but they can't work with temperatures anywhere near as low as what you find in a data center. There are a bunch of startups as well. The last 2, Phasic Energy, Lava Power, are new. They claim to do what we do. I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see. We're happy to compete with them if they do. We have 1 patent in force, 2 other patents in national phase, but the heart of our system is the control system, which is a trade secret, and will remain that way. In terms of the business model, we sort of go 2 ways. The base case is selling equipment. That's a CapEx model. That's what hyperscalers want. But other kinds of entities would rather have less cash up front, and for them we have a system as a service model, which is basically a benefit sharing over time, or some mix of the 2. We're hoping to make a balance of around 50-50. we're looking at very, very fast growth. So I should say our first commercial product will be available in January, a 10 kilowatt unit, and then we'll be moving to the 50 kilowatt units later in the year. I know this looks like an enormous jump, but there's a reason for that. Our customers have told us, if you can only produce tens of units, we're not interested. The only way that you can work in this market is to be able to scale up very fast. And we're doing that by assembly relationships. So we already have an assembly partner in Canada who will produce all of our units for Canada. And we're talking to companies in the US and in Europe. We also have, by the way, a family office who's ready to finance us for $25 million when we're ready to use that. The challenge is just to get there. There are energy environmental benefits. Obviously, we expect by 2034, our fleet of our equipment to be saving 300 megawatts a year. I need to tell you about our management team, because James Chalmers, our CEO, is a very important part of this team that's putting all this together. He's built a team of commercialization team, high-level people in the data center world that know everybody. We also have a great engineering team and a Concordia, and we're in a seed round for $2 million, which is partly subscribed. And I hope, if you're interested, please come talk to me. Let me just add, for Nova Power, energy is too valuable to be used just once.
Great tag. So you've got somebody who wants to do the 25.
Yeah.
That obviously means, we're always looking for validation. So obviously somebody thinks you're up to something cool. You had a whole bunch of logos. I love logos. That's like catnip for me. But I'd love to understand those relationships. So they like you. What does that mean? Like,
well,
maybe go back to the logo slide.
Sure.
And pick one.
Sure.
Cool. It's a good team, eh?
Where is it?
Is there something?
Where am I pointing? I don't know where I'm pointing.
Sorry about that. I thought this would be easier. I apologize.
Sorry. There we go.
Okay,
There we go.
So pick one. Just tell me what it's like to hang out with. I don't know. You get to pick.
Well, NXT Process is a really key partner.
Okay.
They're a strategic partner. They're an investor. They're also going to be our assembly, our manufacturing
They've
assembler.
invested in the $2 million round?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of cool. Okay.
Yeah. Equinix, several of our commercial advisors are former Equinix people. They know everyone at Equinix. It's my colleague, James Chalmers, who maintains this relationship, but he talks to people there all the time. And we've talked to the CEO of JetCool. Conestoga Cold Storage, which is the largest cold storage company in Canada, wants to do a pilot project with us.
Are any of these like purchasers of the equipment?
Yes, but since we don't have anything to sell yet, we're not trying to sell it.
But this is actually supposed to be a softball. So hypothetically,
Hypothetically, they're all going to buy
I know
it.
Siemens is kind of a small company, I've heard. What would they buy if they were buying? Like,
Well, so what they would first buy is our 10 kilowatt units to use in their test bench in their data center,
got it?
which a 10 kilowatt unit that uses 125 kilowatts of heat.
Okay.
If they like what they see, they'll put in an order for 50 kilowatt units to replace CDUs throughout a data center. Now, if we're talking about a 100 megawatt data center, that's already 160 CDUs.
And what's the revenue that you guys would generate?
250,000 US per CDU. So it's real money.
It's real money. That's fantastic. Judges, Keith has a microphone.
Yeah, it was interesting. So the organic Rankine cycle, I've heard of a lot of.
Yeah.
It's definitely not a new concept, as you mentioned, and you mentioned that you have to scale this fast to stay competitive. I'm curious a little bit on the competitive edge. Like you mentioned, you have trade secrets, so don't divulge that. But I'm curious, what about your IP makes it defensible, and what stops somebody from, a large company with bigger pockets, better access to financing? Like, how do you protect yourself against that?
A very good question. So there's the things that distinguish us from the incumbent ORCs is twofold. It's the working fluid, where we have a proprietary algorithm for choosing the ideal working fluid for a given temperature range. But more important is that our expander is a free piston expander. Now, most ORCs companies use turbines or screw expanders, which are all great equipment if your input power is constant. When you build a power plant with a turbine, you design everything so the turbine always has the flow and temperature it needs. So because because turbines are expensive to design, they're expensive to build, and they're fragile. Their vanes can be destroyed by condensation. A free piston linear expander is a piston in a cylinder. It's very low capital cost. It's completely impervious. It doesn't mind condensation at all. But most important, it's controlled in real time, which means that we can adapt to changing circumstances instantaneously. So basically, the circumstances in the data center will change a lot slower than our piston is changing already. So our control system is designed to adapt to that on its own. And that control system, so the patents we have, especially the first of the two national phase patents, is really about the system architecture. It's about all these pieces put together in this way to solve this, which we think really does protect the basic IP. But then, even if you get around that, the control system is a real challenge. And by the way, I should say we've talked to several. Vertiv, for instance, has done a whole research project on trying to use ORC for this purpose. And they concluded, not economic, forget about it. Well, I looked at their case study. They used a turbine. Okay.
Right. Okay. So the differentiation is through that expander technology. And
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Lisa.
Well, congrats for this great idea. My questions are more about the unit economics. You talked about having different target markets.
Yeah.
So data centers, you talked about cold storage, and also you talked about different ways to monetize your idea. So either through maybe being an OEM or provider of the tech, or also having that as a service.
Yeah.
So I was wondering how do, well, the margin profiles and your unit economics, how do they compare from one to the other? And also, what's your focus? So when you launch, do you want to go and try to get all of these people, or do you want to target one first and develop your market?
There's three different questions there.
Yeah.
Start with the last one. The market focus is on data centers. That is our primary focus. And the main reason for that is essentially our 50 kilowatt or 625 kilowatt thermal CDU is a product, a standard product that can be applied in lots of places. Whereas in industry, everything is different and every project is a design project. So we're excited about that, but not first. In terms of the unit economics, the sales price, $250K US for the 50 kilowatt unit, is essentially a 40% margin. The OpEx is actually much more profitable because that unit is going to pay back in 1 or 2, 3 or 4 years, depending on where you are, and it's going to keep on saving energy for the next 20 years. So if we can take a share of that, you know, have the inconvenience of having to finance it, having to fund the equipment, but take a piece of the benefits over 20 years is a lot more interesting. So it's the mix between the two. It depends on, there's a lot of financial relationships to be worked out that I have an expert CEO to do, not my problem. And there was a third part of your question. Yeah, but I think I answered that. But in terms of the markets, so we're really focusing on this 50 kilowatt unit, but there is scale up from there, both in terms of the size of the individual unit, but also of stacking multiple units together. And for the Conestoga project, that's the way it'll be organized. So essentially, it's really the same thing. There are actually benefits to stacking. There are power quality benefits, but again, it's just a little more complicated process, so it comes second.
And for your, so you have a pipeline right now?
Yes.
So in terms of units, how many units do these companies usually are interested in buying from you in terms of stacking?
I'm not sure there's an answer to that. I mean, if, again, a 100 megawatt data center, if you were to go all in and replace all your CDUs, is 160 units. You know, so really, one data center would cover our planned sales, you know, for the next 3 years.
Great.
But there are a lot of people interested, and we're actually for these 10 kilowatts units, we've chosen 15 customers that are looking for people who are interested in working with us to perfect it, who see growth potential, and so we're being fairly strategic about that as well.
Great, thank you.
Have to do this. Well done.
Thank you.
That was great. Thanks so much. I was trying to be secretive and texting Anouk, and it failed. So this is good. No, it was me that failed. I wasn't clear. Light Grid. Light Grid Energy is coming up. to see you, my friend. We actually, it's his fault that I was going to be late, right? No, we were having a great conversation about where LightGrid's going. I'm super impressed with it, so I'm very excited about what we're about to see. Wish you luck. Do you want that or this?
I'll probably use this one.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah, me and Randy are actually competing for the worst French in the country right now. But yeah, pleasure to meet you guys. My name is Mujtaba Khan. I'm a computer scientist turned energy researcher, and for the last 3 years, I've been building this deep tech startup. And what we do over at LightGrid, it's relatively simple. We're trying to shift the upcoming data center demand onto renewable energy directly. I do not have the button. So really what we've seen over the last couple of weeks and years, essentially, is two main themes driving the global economy and global conversations. What we're seeing on one hand is the AI and data center bubble, or push, I guess, and on the other side, the energy transition. These are both trillion-dollar forces, but as Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, or Sam Altman from OpenAI, they mentioned recently that the single greatest limiting growth factor for AI is no longer GPUs and chips, it's now power and infrastructure. And so the US fundamentally does not have enough power to build the amount of data centers they would like. Meanwhile, the energy transition is in full swing. We're going to be investing almost $20 to $30 trillion over the next couple of years by 2030 to switch to a clean energy-based economy. But what's really interesting about this is that in this transition, there are actually 4 great barriers that are going to limit the effectiveness of this transition to renewables. And what we're trying to do here is actually solve 2 of those great barriers by deploying data centers very strategically. Essentially, our work combines both of these growing trends directly. What we're proposing into the market is quite software-driven, essentially. To enable this transition of data centers onto renewable energy directly, we're building cutting-edge market-leading software, and we're also doing a couple of hardware demonstrations and deployments all across the country. Funnily enough, everything that the first panel talked about is actually exactly what we're building. And what we're building is actually exactly what the hyperscalers and AI are looking for today as well. Micro data centers deployed behind the meter at renewable facilities directly. These can be spun up in a matter of months, not years. And by building this way, we can actually bypass a lot of the traditional grid constraints that normal builders would face and rapidly speed up deployment times. But the long-term vision that we have for this product and for our solution is we're really trying to build a network of data centers, micro data centers all across Canada really, that use renewable energy and that can in fact actually benefit grid stability. That's kind of the big thing that we're charging towards. And zooming back out for a second and looping back to the problem, the US actually has a mandate to deploy 500 gigawatts of data centers by 2030, actually. That's in 5 years, guys. But recent reports from Morgan Stanley are indicating that by 2028, there will be a 44 gigawatt shortfall. That's about 44 nuclear reactors worth of data centers that cannot be built. So clearly, you can see the energy is the big limiter here. That's why Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, all these folks, they're starting to look abroad into other regions as well as Canada. You know, Microsoft just this week, actually Monday, just announced that there was a brand new 10 gigawatt facility being developed in Spain, actually. And our whole thesis here is that if we can capture just about 2% of that shortfall data center capacity, particularly the AI folks, that's about a 6 gigawatt opportunity for Canada, which pairs very well with the 31 gigawatts we're planning to deploy of renewables by 2030. That's kind of a $300 billion market opportunity over just the next 5 years. And what we do here at LightGrid, we actually build some very advanced data center facilities. These are designed to be 24/7 running on 100% renewable energy directly. And to achieve that, our sites have a very unique power mix. We run with solar, wind, battery storage, and long-duration energy storage. And that's how we can ensure 100% data center uptime and reliability with 0% carbon usage. And at the heart of our solution and what we're fundamentally selling off the data centers is a custom-built optimization engine. It's a workload and power orchestration tool for these data centers. Hitting that 30% flexibility that Hydro-Quebec is looking for, that's exactly what our software does, actually. And our business model, fundamentally, it's actually built for scale and impact. We have multiple revenue streams coming out. We can license out our software, hardware configurations, and in very rare cases, we'll actually co-own facilities directly with our local community and First Nations partners directly. And to be very, very clear, we're actually not in the game of building data centers ourselves. What we do is we research different deployment models and how you guys can build data centers in a much more healthier way for both people, planet, and grid systems directly. And we'll license out that technology to you folks directly, to data center builders, whoever. To commercialize this renewable power data center technology, what we're really doing is we're actually launching pilots all across the country. The first project that we're working on, it will be deployed in about 90 days in Texas. And that is just directly for data collection purposes to train our early AI systems. And those early AI systems we're actually going to be demonstrating next month directly at UFT with the Vector Institute. After some of those smaller scale deployments, we're working on 2 pilots with some research institutions. And those are fundamental for our work directly. That's actually where we're going to test a lot of the hardware directly and deploy our software into the real grid conditions directly, and then see really how it's functioning with all the stressors the grid produces, peaks, yada, 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 all that good stuff. And finally, everything is going to culminate in what we call a flagship project with a First Nations community over in New Brunswick. That's actually a project we won through a Foresight Challenge directly. And that's a really interesting project. There, we're actually deploying about a 2 to 5 megawatt data center. It's going to have all of our equipment, multi-compute, multiple hybrid power on the back end as well. We're actually building a solar battery-based microgrid as well as a green data center for that community directly, hitting both energy and economic sovereignty with one solution, clearly. Who are we competing against? I've been building this for about 3 years. There's been no direct competitors in the market for a very long time, and I was a little bit scared, actually. But now there are 2 proponents that have popped up just this year alone. So on the hardware front, there's a company popped up out of UK a couple months ago, actually. Their goal is to build a network of data centers powered by renewables. And it sounds pretty similar to our work. And then on the software side, we also had a massive proponent pop up this year, actually. They are backed by NVIDIA. They came out of stealth this year. They actually raised $48 million seed. With NVIDIA leading that round. And by the way, guys, NVIDIA is actually worth more than all of Canada. Fantastic stuff. So the question is, and big question on my mind, how do we beat these guys, right? And the answer, as I'm going to butcher it, as Haig Energy or Huga Energy said yesterday, actually, is that we're very thankful to be building here in Canada, actually. For us to beat these guys, what we're doing is we're tapping so deeply into the Canadian innovation ecosystem. That's across academia, research, the national IP programs, the 3 AI Excellence Centers, the quantum institutes I had no idea about until today. That's kind of how we win. We want to build the most advanced global model, built and designed by the brightest minds here in Canada, trained off of proprietary global data. And that's kind of how we win in these very tough competitors. Now, it's not just myself doing this work. We do have an incredible team of 9 folks, and we're backed by some industry champions from our advisors, people that have deployed gigawatts of generations, billions of dollars in worth of infrastructure, built a lot of Canada supercomputers, and our lead builder is also raising his first $1 billion right now to build out 100 megawatts of data centers all across Texas. So that's a little bit about what we do fundamentally. We're actually today actively closing our $3 million pre-seed round right now. We have active projects all across the country in hardware. We're going to demonstrate our software next month with the Vector Institute. And we've built a very large pipeline of customers across both software and hardware. That's a little bit about what we do. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to come out. And there's a link here as well you can use to book a meeting. Thanks, guys.
That's good. You've done.
He's done this before, hasn't he?
No,
Yes,
no.
yes.
I'm very nervous, guys.
Are you?
Yes.
You're kidding. You just got up on stage, did a great presentation, and at the end of the presentation you said, and I don't need your stinking money.
No, we do, guys.
That was well done. Yeah, I have a ton of questions, and some of it goes back to our first question. First off, by the way, I'd love to say your name properly. How do I say it properly?
Mujtaba.
Mujtaba. Okay, so Mujtaba. When
Perfect.
you and I were talking, I even got confused, and quite frankly, a couple of times even, like, I loved right in your middle of your presentation, you took my first question away when you said, we don't build data centers. But then you ended with, but we're building this data center in New Brunswick. So I think the clarity for everybody about your role in, like, you're almost like, we would call it in IT, an aggregator, right? Like, it's not your hardware, it's not those pieces. Your glue between the bricks is your software. Is that the right way to say it?
Fantastic.
I am smart.
So that's exactly what we're doing. Randy's quite right here. We do not actually build data centers. We're building this one in New Brunswick, however, to kind of pull together all of the pieces of our technology from software, from hardware, multi-compute facilities, multiple renewables on the back end. And so we're demonstrating what it could look like for a green data center directly in Canada with a First Nations community. Our whole thesis is very deep community ownership. And so what we're going to do from this flagship product or flagship facility is we're going to start licensing out the technology out to other folks to start building. You know, I actually presented some of our work at the largest First Nations Energy Conference a couple weeks ago, and there was a lot of interest from other First Nations communities. We actually have 2 other communities quite interested in also deploying some of these green data centers directly. And then the software as well is quite interesting to a number of data center proponents. The ones in Quebec, it sounds like, could definitely use it for that 30% flexibility, but we're targeting folks that use either hybrid compute at their data centers, hybrid renewables, or folks that do AI stuff with a bunch of different softwares that they use. We can aggregate it all and optimize it all in real time.
So basically, did they pay you to be like a consultant? Do you get like ongoing revenue from this, like for the next 10 years? And quite frankly, I'm not really interested who then paid for the data center.
Great questions all around. So this first facility in New Brunswick where we're going to deploy everything directly, it's actually a co-owned facility where we will be 40% owners of the project, and the First Nations community, the Emlumguk community in New Brunswick, Fort Foley, if you guys know them, they will be 60% owners in the project. The folks financing it will be from their, there was a lot of interest from the the First Nation specific funding mechanisms and instruments. We went to the conference, there was a lot of interest in funding these projects through those brand new investment mechanisms. And we will be co-owners of this facility, so for the next 10, 20 years, we will just be getting a tiny check from it every single time. They'll also be deploying our software directly at the facility, and that's kind of our thesis. We want to propagate this network of green data centers all across the country and the globe, running directly on our software. That's kind of our business model.
That was super helpful. I appreciate that. I've got Brent and Keith. First-time caller today, so I'm going to put Brent on first.
Thanks. Yeah, I was just following up on your question there. As you get past this first data center, how does this look? Are you originating these projects, or are you coming into somebody that's struggling to get a data center going? Where do you fit into the development process?
Great questions, guys. A couple things. So after this flagship project is done, we will begin scaling up these specific types of deployment models. Okay, so stepping back a couple layers, we actually do research. We're researching how you can deploy data centers sustainably. We have 3 particular models on how you can do that. This New Brunswick project is one of those models. It's our smallest scale model directly on how a community, a remote region, can essentially deploy a data center that improves your grid stability as well as generates you a lot of economic resources. We have other deployment models where we go directly to utilities, to DSOs. Think Toronto Hydro, for instance, with their 30 megawatt call for battery storage recently. We could also build a mini data center directly in Toronto to actually improve grid stability. That was one of the conversations we were having. And then the third model is building with transmission scale data centers, kind of think IESO, placing data centers behind a couple different grid-constricted regions, congestion, curtailment, heavy regions, and then cleaning a lot of that up and still providing stability to those regions directly. That's kind of how we're looking to further propagate this. It's a lot of licensing out to different companies to build these data centers for us. We show them exactly where they can build, how they can build, and then we give them the software to run everything very, very effectively. That's kind of what we do.
Keith.
Yeah, this is a really interesting concept. Having the software to put it all together. I'm curious, like you mentioned, your startup, you're starting to compete with these larger companies. I'm thinking about how you start to establish credibility, and at the same time, you have to coordinate a lot of suppliers, technology providers, utilities. You just mentioned these 3 different possible deployment models. I'm curious, like, what are the key partnerships you need to establish? And it sounds like there's a lot. So, like, what are the most important ones, and how are you going to prioritize that?
Great questions. Oh my goodness, guys.
They know what they're
Partnerships we need.
doing.
They do. Now they're trying to be ruthless, guys. I love it. Partnerships we need. You're right, actually. We're talking to some of the best VCs across the country and in North America in our field. So the field that we're building into is called Clean AI. It's actually been developed just the last year and a half almost. I've been doing this work for 3 or 4 years now. So the partnerships that we need fundamentally from that, they also mentioned from the best VCs that our whole model, it's a relationship model. 99% of what we're doing is actually building these relationships with these larger customers so that we can get a very clear distribution strategy. And that's kind of what it is. It's all about distributing our products into the right hands, doing the right work. And so one of those right hands directly are the First Nations communities. That's one distribution model for the small scale projects. The other ones, what we need fundamentally, are folks that build data centers, that operate them, and that own them all across the country. We also need people that use compute. Oh my goodness. That is the biggest headache right now that we're finding. People that actually want to off-take the GPUs or the compute from us directly, as well as people that can help us build these facilities and that want to own these facilities. When we do find regions across Ontario, for instance, like the western side of Ontario, where there is a very limited amount of transmission infrastructure infrastructure, lots of renewables, lots of curtailment in those regions. We can show you exactly how you can build a data center, what capacity it could look like, what stack of renewables could look like, what type of compute could be built there. And then we'll license out everything to you, essentially, so that you can build the data center. We're not in the business of building data centers, and that's how we scale all across the country rapidly. We're a short team of 9 almost, a small team, and we already have about 4 or 5 projects in the pipeline we're actively working on, and then a couple others in the pipeline that we are not actively working on.
I'm going to give you the last question, and I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Please.
I don't think you're a good VC company. Like, if I told you you had to sell this to somebody in 10 years so I could make a pile of money, do you want to get out of this in 10 years?
You're hitting it directly, actually. We're talking to VCs, and there's a lot of pain there almost. The VCs here in Canada, fundamentally, they're actually a couple of years behind, unfortunately, so they don't see the value behind what we're doing. The VCs in America see the value behind what we're doing, but they're scared as well, actually. We're competing against the best of the best. We need a lot of capital, and we're building both hardware and software for right now. So you're right, Randy, we might be a better fit for private equity, and that's also one angle that we're looking at right now. But
Yeah.
I also have no connection in the space. I'm a junior in the space. I'm a researcher, more or less. That's why I'm a little nervous. So I don't really go out and connect with these folks. So partnerships and financing is one great thing that we're looking for right now.
But do you want to actually sell? Like, it sounds like you really like what you're doing.
Do we want to sell in 10 years' time? You know, the exit strategy is a great thing that I'm actually looking at as well, not from the concept of an exit strategy, more of a succession plan. I want to be able to remove myself and propagate the model all across the globe and the country, and we do that through a couple different Web3 technologies we're looking into, but there's no option to sell fundamentally. It's more like just building a platform and then doing an ICO, an initial coin offering or something like that.
Very cool. Well done. Thanks for coming out today.
Thank you, guys.
Well done. You did great.
That is a guy who's thrilled to get off this stage, by the way. Volt Server, where are you? There you are. Good to meet you. No way.
What's that?
Sorry, you said.
No, I said good to meet you also. Let's
Oh,
redo that.
also, I thought you said Newcastle. It's my favorite football club. So
Oh, no, yeah.
He's sucking up to me immediately. Well done. So that's what I usually get, actually. Well, welcome aboard. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers. Thank you. So I'm just going to test this real quick. Is it? Oh, one at the top? Oh, I get it. The big, got it. Yeah, got it. Thank you. The big obvious green button. So I am part of a company called Volt Server. And what Volt Server does is we sell equipment that makes it easier to get power, electricity, from one point to another. All right, and we do that because by using this technology we invented called digital electricity, and what it is, it's the first form of high voltage electricity, and when I say high voltage, I mean inside buildings, up to 450 volts. That's safe to touch. It can't hurt you. It can't start a fire. And the benefit of that is now you can install it very simply, just as easy as you install Ethernet cable. In fact, we've converted electricity from what was this difficult, dangerous infrastructure that electrical contractors come in and install to an IT appliance. And in fact, it is in the National Electric Code, it's listed as an IT appliance because we basically have digitized electricity and turned electricity to something that's treated exactly the same way as data. Okay. I know a lot of people, you haven't heard of us. It sounds like we're saying we've created fire that doesn't burn you. And that is exactly what we're saying. But we're not crazy. We've been doing this for a long time. Most of our customers today are Fortune 500 customers. We're a standard in the telecommunication industry. And the National Electric Code has changed because of us. So what I would like to do today is I'm in charge of actually developing new markets. And a couple new markets that we're investigating, I'd like to share it with you. And what I'm hoping to leave with is just some partners that would like to explore actually implementing digital electricity into their industry. And those two businesses or two industries, markets are buildings and data centers. Anyway, I skipped it. But the building you just saw, I'm not gonna try to go back. The building you just saw, oh no, I can. No, I'll forget it. It's okay, it's fine. The building you just saw, oh, I did it. Look at that. Jimmy, you're good. So this is a building in New Jersey. It was built in 1960. The reason that's important is because most buildings on the east coast of our continent are about 60 years old. Now, another thing is most of these buildings are powered by, or their heating and cooling is powered by fossil fuels. Interesting fact, the buildings are at least 60 years old, but those fossil fuel systems, the pipes that are running through the building, fail after about 35 years. And so that customer that I just showed you, that building, they're spending about $400,000 a year in basically repairing walls and pipes and on wasted energy. So it's a real problem. So the obvious thing would be to electrify. Just install clean, efficient heat pumps that are low maintenance, and you'd be done. But the problem again is that building was built in 1960, was designed to be powered by natural gas in this case. So they don't have the power distribution. You have to increase, to electrify that building, you have to increase electricity moving through that building by 500%. The wires aren't big enough, the transformer's not big enough, the panels are big, nothing's big enough. So you basically have to tear the building apart and put it back together again. You have to install new panels, you have to bring electricians where 75% of their cost is just bending conduit. Then, of course, they have to core drill new risers, they have to channel through walls. Then you have to upgrade incoming service, which hopefully, and I don't believe this, the utility told them maybe 2 years. And if you're part of this industry, it's very unlikely that they're getting a new transformer in 2 years. And utility doesn't want to deliver it. And finally, picture, they have to move their tenants. And so you can't do this work with the tenants in place. So you have to spend another $1 million moving these tenants out and putting them in temporary housing. All right, so altogether, that building was going to spend about $6 million and 2 years, hopefully, to electrify that building. So it just wasn't going to happen. They were just going to keep paying that $400,000 a year. Now, why is electrical distribution so hard? So imagine for a second, you guys do electrical distribution every single day, right? You plug in your iPhone. Why don't you have to bring in an electrician to plug in your iPhone to charge it? Why don't you have to put that little cable in conduit? The reason is because it's safe. And so it's not going to start a fire. It's not going to hurt someone. So electrical safety people have said, okay, we can let people do this themselves, use these really simple wiring methods. The problem is the way they make this safe is that they limit the power in that little wire to about 5 watts, about 5 volts and about 5 watts of power. So you can't really use it for much, right? So it's safe, but almost useless in terms of the scope of electrical infrastructure. So what digital electricity is, I'm sorry, here's a little iPhone chart. We're not going to power, in other words, you're not going to power a heat pump or data center rack with an iPhone charger, right? So what we did is we invented the first form of electricity that's 450 volts that's actually safer than an iPhone charger, right? You're more likely to get hurt by an accident on your iPhone charger than from our electricity, even though we're distributing at 450 volts, and we can power a 400 kW server rack, right? The reason is we convert, when we take that power, we convert it into the safe form of electricity that we call digital electricity. So at the source where you get your medium voltage, where the power comes into your building, we convert it, just like the adapter on your iPhone, we convert it into the safe form of digital DC power. And then from there, you're basically just using Ethernet powering methods, Ethernet wiring methods to get it to the source, right? To whatever you want to power. And so if you're powering a server rack, you're powering a heat pump, you're basically just convert it at your main panel, pulling data cable, or it's not exactly data cable, but you're pulling very similar to data cable through your data wire trays, bring it to whatever you're powering, and you're done. Right? You don't have to bring electrical contractors in, your IT people do it. So the benefit for the building I just showed you was that's about 1/3 the cost to do this work. It takes weeks instead of years, right? It's so non-disruptive, the tenants can stay there. We have to spend about 3 hours inside the tenant's apartment, or not us, but the installers, and it avoids a service or upgrade. Why? Because it's combined with data. I'd say we call it digital convergence. Power and data are no longer different things. So it becomes very easy for us. Everything we power, we can monitor and control. And so it becomes very easy for us to budget the power inside the building, all the devices, so that they can power more without bringing more power into their building. So we have about 1,000 large installations across North America and in Europe. They're mostly Fortune 500 companies. You've all used our power. You don't know. If you've ever gone to an airport, a football stadium, probably a hotel, we've probably powering the communications in those places. And the thing we're most proud of is that the National Electric Code was changed. For the first time in 50 years, they've created a new class of power called fault managed power. And that was us. And in 2027, Canada is adopting the same listing. Okay, so again, we're focusing, our new markets are buildings, data centers, EV chargers. So you want to get power to devices more simply. We'd love to talk to you and see how we can partner to see what new possibilities we can create for your business. Thank you.
That's great. You've done this before.
I have done this before, yeah.
Sorry, we're talking in front of your back.
Yeah.
He's done this before. By the way, there isn't a financial ask. I know you haven't had trouble fundraising, is a good way to put it.
There's always trouble fundraising, but we're a later stage company, so we're not looking for seed money, but thank you.
There are still some VCs and institutional in the room, so at some point if you're looking to build the next round, you might want to get some of those cards. But then I have to ask you, what's the best thing you could get out of this forum today?
The best thing would be like, I have a data center. It's hard for us to install new racks. One of the challenges, I'll tell you the benefit for data centers, since everyone's talking about data centers. We use 80% less space. No PDUs, no UPSs, no bus bar. It's just like distributing data cable, including the same tray, from the power source and coming to building to your data center, right? Your IT people do it, they maintain it, right? You become independent, and it's totally flexible, right? You want to take that, again, it's like skinny little cable, just like data cable. You want to move stuff around, we can do that. So we would love to work with people. If you're electrifying a building or you're electrifying server racks, please talk to me, I would love that.
1,000 installs, pretty cool.
Yep.
Large companies, margins on what you're doing, do you mind me asking that?
Relatively high.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Relatively high, but not absurd. But high for, just what you would expect for our stage and I can't give financial data, but
that's fine. Because where I was going is it's super impressive because you've actually taken out a ton of the amount of people that do the installs and all the the real cost of what you do is tied up in things that you don't usually put in that original cost base. So
100%.
it seems like your margins would be super high because you've taken out a lot of the costs in the middle.
Yeah, that's right. That's why we call it convergence, because now you used to have two teams that would do electrical and data. You'd have two raceways, two infrastructural data, and now you just have one.
Yeah. Lisa's got a mic, I see.
Yes. So congrats on all you have achieved. I heard you have your hardware installed in all NFL stadiums. So
that's right.
That's great. Maybe a question. So in terms, do you provide the cables as well, or is it just the transmitters and receivers?
You're so great. You did background. Yes, we did. We do just transmitters, just the receivers. We work with partners. There's like Belden, Southwire. All the largest cable companies make digital electricity rated cable.
Okay, and in terms of density and distance, how is it right now?
Kilometers.
Kilometers.
Yeah, in fact, so when I think depending on what we're powering, we follow the same rules as electricity, but often people like PoE, power over Ethernet, if you've ever heard of that, it's a little bit of power, a short distance. Sometimes we'll say, we're power over Ethernet on steroids because we can do thousands of watts and we can go kilometers, but it's the same wiring methods.
Great.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
You're just feeding into my question was really understanding how much power you can scale up. You're talking about skinny wires, but
Yes.
how much?
How much exactly?
How big of copper do you need, or is there any copper advantage?
Yeah, we use a lot less. We use less copper. we use less copper because it's higher voltage than, say, 277 in a building or something. So it's skinny wires, like 18 gauge will typically go in. But where we really save money, do you know 97% of the space that power takes when you're installing the building, it's not the copper, it's all the protection you have to put in. Yes, exactly. And so where we really save weight and space and material is because now you don't need conduit, you don't need you have to put it in its own pathways, and so that's why we save so much space and work. I mean, space and weight.
Isn't it great to come into a room and you say things and people nod? They actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's cool.
No, it's
I had
great.
no clue what you just said, and it was awesome.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like you and I
Yeah.
are the same people here. I'm buying myself time. We actually have time for some questions from the floor. I can take two from the. That was one of the nodding heads, by the way. Yeah, sorry. Can we?
I know.
Can
I
you
know. No, the question is why don't I see this everywhere? Why doesn't it exist before? And the problem is that the electrical distribution market is so gigantic that it's easy to get lost in. Like we are like you go to some industry. Like I think this was the first conference I went to. The guy from Siemens, Bernard, he knew me and he knew us. And I was like, wow, someone actually heard of us at a conference, And it was honestly an exciting moment for me. But yeah, it's just such a huge industry. It's so slow for changing. It hasn't changed since Edison. This is the first innovation since Edison. And so it's really hard to change anything. And so it's very slow.
That was a very bold statement, by the way.
Yeah,
Very cool.
but it's the truth. Yeah.
Over there.
Well, very nice, and I like the idea. And I was wondering about efficiency concerns because, I understand that when you transfer and you transform electricity from AC to DC, you have a lot of efficiency decrease, and through the wire, I know it's less efficient. How's that? How's the number?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're a little bit more efficient than normal AC distribution. But it's not, we don't really sell on that point. But yes, like when you convert AC to DC, you lose about 4%, right? But then when at the end load, we don't know what we're powering, so we have these things called receivers that power that are convert to 50 volts or a DC or 277 AC. And those things are about 99 point something efficient. But overall, we're a little bit more efficient than a traditional system. But nothing to brag about.
Well done, by the way.
Thanks a lot.
James.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Even though you don't like Newcastle.